Hey guys, thanks for coming back. This is the Orlando Magic versus Boston Celtics video. My breakdown and talking about the matchups and things like that. This is part 2 of that video. So if you haven't seen part 1, please go back and watch part 1. Thanks for coming back. But what I was saying about Kendrick Perkins is he's a big center. He's not that tall. He's very big body. Like I said, he's a great team defender, great individual defender. But a lot of people don't give him credit for his toughness. I mean, this guy, you can't move him. I mean, he played Shaq one-on-one last series. A lot of people might say, "Oh, Shaq's over the hill, and he's a shell of himself." Yeah, that's true. But guess what? He's still 340 pounds, and you're not just going to move him around. So Perkins did a good job on him. He allowed the Celtics to not only play very good team defense, but he allowed the Celtics to say, "Okay, we can roam around. We don't have to double team Shaq every time because we got Kendrick Perkins on him." Now, by no means am I going to sit here and say Kendrick Perkins is going to stop Dwight Howard, because nobody can stop Dwight Howard. But what he does for the Celtics, he allows them to play him one-on-one for the most part, and have Dwight Howard try to take him one-on-one. And now Dwight Howard uses quickness and things like that, but Dwight Howard is most comfortable in the paint, and Kendrick Perkins, I think, will give him a more difficult time. Now, with Dwight Howard, he's going to be a tough matchup for Perkins, because he's quicker and things like that. But what he's going to do is, on defense, he doesn't have to. I'm not saying he doesn't have to guard Perkins, but he definitely doesn't have to pay a lot of attention to Perkins, because Perkins is not a big scorer. So he can definitely come up on the weak side and help with a lot of shot blocking and clogging up the lane, and stopping the penetrations, things like that, because Perkins is not really a big offensive threat that way. So definitely, obviously, Dwight Howard is going to win that matchup by the numbers of points, rebounds, and blocks and stuff like that. But it's not just about numbers. Sometimes in the NBA and in the playoffs, it's all about who plays the hardest and what's going on the floor. So that's going to be a real interesting matchup for the starters. Now, some of the key players on the bench, I feel, are going to be very important in the series for Orlando. First of all is Michael Petrus. He's playing lights out right now. He's shooting. I mean, he's hitting threes with his eyes closed right now. This guy's hitting everything. He's playing tough defense, and also he brings a big spark off the bench for them. And he's a very good player. He's not just a three-point shooter. He's a real good player. So I like him coming off the bench for Orlando. Also, Jason Williams, backup point guard for Jameer Nelson. He's going to be key, and I'll tell you why in a minute, because he definitely can hit threes. He can run the floor, and he doesn't try to do too much. He's not the old white chocolate that was doing all the crazy stuff. He plays within the system. He brings the ball up court, doesn't make mistakes. Decent defender, more of a team defender now, but we don't have to worry about that with him. He shoots a lot of threes and gets his team involved. Also, you got Gortat, the center, backup center for Orlando. I don't know if you guys realize this, but Gortat was getting ready to go to Dallas last summer, and he was gonna start for Dallas. He'd probably start for 75% of the NBA. That's how good of a player he is. So, if Dwight Howard gets into foul trouble, which I think is the only way Boston really has a really good chance to win this series, if Dwight Howard gets into foul trouble, Gortat is a very good backup. So they have a very good backup plan as far as Howard if he goes out as far as foul trouble. Now you got J.J. Redick. Obviously, we know he's a three-point shooter coming from Duke. He's actually opened his game up a little bit more. He's driving now. He's playing pretty good defense now. I'm not saying he's a stopper or nothing like that, but he's definitely a better team defender. And he's also been in the weight room this summer, so he's a little bit stronger. He got a new hairdo, so he thinks he's all cool with that. But for the ladies, I guess, I don't know. But J.J. Redick is definitely a player that's not just a three-point shooter. He's a real good player off the bench. And then you got Ryan Anderson. I think he's going to be an X factor. Tall guy. He can shoot threes, spread the floor out, and he's another, he's a poor man's Rashard Lewis. He can shoot threes, not as athletic as Rashard Lewis, but he's definitely a viable player off the bench. Boston has some good players off the bench too. Rasheed Wallace, to me, for the Boston Celtics, will be the X factor, because they brought him in for series like this. For Cleveland, Orlando, and the Lakers. I mean, he, stepped his game up in the last series, Game 6, but he's been, let's just say, inconsistent. So with him stepping his game up, he definitely will bring an aspect to Boston that they haven't had all year, because he really hasn't panned out for him yet. But it's not too late. This is when it counts. This is where you earn your money. So I believe if Rasheed Wallace plays well, if he's hitting some threes, if he can get down there on the block on a couple different mismatches that Orlando will give him, I believe he can be an X factor. He can. If you know Rasheed Wallace, all you Portland, Detroit, and different fans that have different teams he's played for, you know what he can do. So he's a pretty good player. Also, you got Tony Allen. Now, Tony Allen to me is so underrated because a lot of people don't realize that when he came in the game, not only did he spark the team on offense, with his layups and dunks and stuff like that, but he played really good defense on LeBron James. I hate to say that, but he stripped him a couple times. He made it real difficult. A lot of people, when you look at LeBron James and see how good he is, a lot of people don't think he can be stopped or nobody can do anything with him because a lot of people say, oh, maybe his head wasn't right and this, that, and the third. Tony Allen might have been the reason for that. Him and combination of him and Paul Pierce, you never know. So Tony Allen will definitely be an X factor coming in off the bench, guarding, guarding Paul Pierce. Guarding, the small forwards and the shooting guards like Michael Petrus, and just different matchups. He gives people problems all over the place. I mean, he's good. He can guard Vince Carter too, in my opinion. So he's definitely another X factor too. Then you got Glenn Big Baby Davis. You know how he is. He comes and goes. He's a strong player. He gets his shot blocked a lot, but he's definitely aggressive. So I like his aggressiveness. Michael Finley, he'll come off the bench, hit a couple threes. The only thing I don't like about their bench is they don't have a true point guard, and I'll get into that in a minute. I think that might hurt him in the end because Rajon Rondo's going to be spending a lot of energy. This is going to be a tough one to pick. But if I had to pick one, I mean, they played 10 times. This was a 10-game series. I think it would go 5-5, but it's not. It's a 7-game series. It's odd numbers, and only one team can win 4. I'd have to pick the Orlando Magic, and here's why. The only way I think the Boston Celtics could have upset Orlando, because it would be a slight upset, is if Dwight Howard gets into foul trouble. But I think with all this time off and all this rest that they had, that the Orlando Magic had, I believe they got ready for those type of situations with the foul. I don't think Dwight Howard have a problem fouling out, especially not having to guard Kendrick Perkins. I think he's learned. He's had a lot of time to watch tape and things like that. Rondo has always struggled against Orlando. Last year, if you recall, he had a really good series against the Chicago Bulls. Almost averaged triple-double. Had a whole bunch of triple-doubles, played good. But then in the semis last year, semi-conference finals, he struggled against Orlando, and Jameer Nelson wasn't even playing. So, I know he's a lot better than he is last year, than he is right now. But that's going to be, something he'll look at. Orlando Magic has a home court advantage, so that's one big thing I got to give them. The 7 games is played in Orlando, and if anybody ever picks a team in 7, which I'm going to pick, I pick Orlando in 7. That means the series can go either way. This series can go either way. So this is one of the toughest predictions I've ever had to do, because this series is tough, man, and they're going to be playing hard. But what the Orlando Magic's goals are. I know Boston's trying to win the championship, but Orlando Magic went to the NBA Finals last year and they lost to the Lakers. And they have championship aspirations. That's all they've been thinking about. I'm not saying Boston hasn't either, but I think Orlando, total team from 1 to 12 or 1 to 15, I just think they got a better team. The slight edge in coaching, I think, would go to Stan Van Gundy, because this guy, he's phenomenal. But Coach Rivers is a great coach too, but Stan Van Gundy, I think, is just a little bit better. Fatigue will be a factor in this series. These guys, this is deep in the playoffs, and they will be tired, and I think the bench will be a big factor. And I just think Orlando has a little bit more firepower off the bench, and also Rajon Rondo is going to be playing a lot of minutes, and there's not a true point guard to back him up. Tony Allen backs him up. I know people say Nate Robinson, but he's not really a guy that's going to run the offense and do the things. He comes in and gets a spark, but he really comes in during blowouts, or sometimes when they need a quick spark or something like that. But he's not going to really run a team and replace Rondo, so I don't think that's going to happen. So my pick is Orlando Magic. I got to go with them. To me, they're more hungrier, they're more deeper, they got a little bit better coaching, and also they went to the NBA Finals and lost, so they have the revenge factor against the Kobe Bryant-led Lakers, and I think that's going to be good. So stay tuned for the next video. I'm going to do another LeBron James, what team he should go to. I'm going to be talking about the New Jersey Nets. Thanks again, guys, for watching. I really appreciate it. Keep the love coming. If you got any questions, let me know. Thank you. Have a good day.